The summit of Mount Everest is 29,035 feet above sea level. It is the highest destination on the planet. Today, I'm going to take you on a journey around the world that will culminate on the slopes of Mount Everest. And I want to share with you the leadership lessons that I learned on this expedition that helped me be successful climbing Mount Everest. But more importantly, I believe these same lessons could impact all of you in this room right now to help you with your leadership journey, being in a Toastmasters position and to help all of your clubs. My goal is for you to take a few notes so that when you leave this room, you can apply these lessons immediately to your clubs. And the best news of the day, ladies and gentlemen, is that you don't have to climb Mount Everest to get this information. When you go to Mount Everest, it is not about the destination. It is all about the journey. Before I continue, by a show of hands, how many of you in this room right now are on some kind of journey? Come on now. Don't be bashful. Look around the room. Everybody has a hand up because we're all on some kind of journey. And the journey began. We went from Africa to South America to climb the highest peak in the Southern Hemisphere, Aconcagua in Argentina, 22,873 feet. Highest I had ever been. We were successful. We then traveled to North America in the great state of Alaska to climb Denali in 2008. 20,000-foot peak, 100 miles from the Arctic Circle. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you right now, it is a dangerous, epic adventure to be on the top of Denali. But we were successful. Feeling pretty good. We then ventured to Europe to climb the highest peak in Europe, which is not Mount Blanc, much to the chagrin of the French people. The highest mountain in Europe is known as Mount Elbrus in Russia, the Caucasus Mountains, and we were successful. Then we decide to go to the bottom of the earth. We land on this snow-torn desert of a continent known as Antarctica. And we went to climb Vinson Massif in 2016, 16,000-foot peak. We were successful. 5 of the 7 summits, all successfully climbed, all without oxygen. I'm feeling pretty good for my next adventure. So in January of 2016, I knew my next adventure would be to climb the highest peak in Asia, which is Mount Everest. And I asked my friends to go with me, and life happens, right? They couldn't join me. I had to go solo to do Mount Everest. And I signed up to be on the 2018 expedition. And if I was successful on Everest, I would conquer my last peak in Australia, known as Kosciuszko, which is like climbing the incline with a 12-pack of Foster's Lager. We'll save that one for last. So sure enough, after that experience, I decided what were the 3 most important disciplines, lessons, rules, whatever you want to call it, that helped me be successful on Mount Everest. The worksheet that you have in front of you is very simple. I'm going to describe these 3 disciplines, and then you can make notes that would pertain to you and your journey and your leadership in a Toastmasters club. Familiarize yourself with base camp, where we stayed for 8 weeks on the ice and snow. Or acclimate your Toastmaster to the base camp online portal, where they can learn from. Because when you acclimate really well on Everest, as you can see these camps, you are putting yourself into a position to be successful. But this is base camp, where we stayed on a 2-inch mat for 8 weeks on the ice and snow. Those were our tents where we slept. There's our dining tent. We had hot showers. We have toilets that are totally covered with padded seats. All the comforts of home. Does it look like fun? No. I love the honesty in the room. Remember, we're acclimating. And his job is to get me from Camp 4 to the summit and back down safely. Why am I being introduced to him 7 weeks before I even get to Camp 4? Because lesson number 2, ladies and gentlemen, is to build community. The Sherpa people have an incredible blend of strength and humility. And this young man, with his temperament, his tone, his gracious attitude, infected me, and I was all ears with Tunong. And what I want you to think about, who in your Toastmasters clubs or districts have this blend of strength and humility? Those are the people that I believe are probably sitting in this room right now as officers, board members, that are giving back and building community in your clubs. I wake up surrounded by walls of ice. Daylight finally comes, and I look around, and I'm, OMG, we're going up and down these huge blocks of ice trying to get through that ice fall. And it's difficult. But then it gets really fun when we have to do this. Crevasses as wide as a 4-lane highway, spanned by 5 ladders that are actually duct taped together from some roll of duct tape from Home Depot. I got my pack. I've got my crampons on. I've got these ropes here, and I'm going across this thing, and it is bending back and forth, but that's the only way to get there. And sure enough, I got through it. But when you get to the middle and you look down, it is an endless abyss on that mountain. I made it through. My Sherpa was so happy I made it through. First time, he took a picture of me. We have breakfast. Notice we're all in our big down suits, much colder. And I know that we're going to a higher elevation. So before we go, I pull my Sherpa to the side and I said, Tuna, today could be my day. He goes, what are you talking about? On my other climbs, when I got above 21 to 22,000 feet, for whatever reason, I'm not sure, but I felt stronger, better, more clear, better breathing, muscles, you name it. I just felt strong. And he, of course, what does he do? rolls his eyes back in his head like, we'll be lucky to even get there. Sure enough, we line up. The gentleman right behind me is Rahul from India, and we start going up the Lhotse face. Ladies and gentlemen, it is going up a vertical ice rink at 65 degrees. He's carrying my water, my sleeping bag, and my pad. And I'm right on his tail, and my head is down, and I'm just going. And 4 hours into this trek to 25,000 feet, he stops. He turns around with this huge smile on his face. I go, what? Turn around. I turn around, and there. That's what I'm talking about, baby. That's what I'm talking about, baby. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the 49er Club. There is the top of the world. I can taste it being at this camp. There's Camp 4. I just got to go up there and boom, I've done it. So I say to the guys, hey guys, can we just do this now? What do you think they said? No. Why? Sorry, Brooke. We're not going to do that. We're going to go down to Camp 2, spend the night. We're going to go down to Camp 1, spend the night. Then we're going to go down to base camp, and we're going to spend 5 nights in base camp, because base camp, the pathways, is just like base camp at Everest. You reinvigorate your intentions, your goals, your dreams, and how it's all going to work when you get to the summit. And I can taste it. And I look down, and the tips, the very tips of my pinkies are black. That's weird. I've never had frostbite. They don't hurt. There's no pain. But when I go like this, they're like pieces of driftwood. Lost it. I called him every effing name in the book. I was a raging lunatic in front of his staff, in front of my Sherpa. So unprofessional. But I'm sorry. I couldn't deal with what he's telling me. And he's just gracious and humble. And he says, oh, hold on. Has a staff member come over with a picture of a gentleman who last year had the exact same thing as me and did not leave the mountain. He had lost all 4 of those fingers and all 3 of those. That was the moment that I knew this dream is over. I could not go home to my children and my granddaughter without my fingers. During your journeys, whether it be in Toastmasters or wherever, have you ever had a situation where you had to make a decision like that? And how did you overcome it? What did you do to move past it? Because my Sherpa is trying to console me, and I'm still not realizing that I am leaving. And then he says to me, oh, do you have your credit card with you? I go, what are you talking about? I had to charter my own helicopter to come to base camp, pick me up, take me to the hospital in Kathmandu, where the doctors, ER doctors, bandaged both ring fingers and pinkies on my fingers. And then I got the worst news ever. I was told I had to stay in Kathmandu for 4 days and come back to the hospital each day to get rewrapped. And I'm in this dirty, dark, dingy hotel room. All my gear is spread out. I have no phone. I have no internet. I have no Wi-Fi. I have no computer. I have no one to talk to. And I've got these bandages, and I'm lying in a fetal position on my bed, crying my eyes out because I am such a failure, a loser, inadequate, unprepared, you name it. It was my darkest moment. I don't know if this has ever happened to any of you, but it was not a good place for me. And I started to look at my fingers, and I started to move them. And the thing that popped into my head is from all this reading I've done by my favorite author, John Maxwell. There is a lesson in his book that I love over and over again. There it is, and I was victorious on 5 of the world's 7 summits. However, I have learned you do not take off your gloves at 25,000 feet on Mount Everest. That's the lesson I learned. That's what I started thinking about. But I still had my fingers. And so, as I'm acclimatizing in my hotel room, I thought, okay. I got up, I showered, I shaved, I got all fixed up, kept my bandages on, and I went out into Kathmandu. And I found a pub. But the question that I get to answer now is, what's next? And this is the question that I want all of you to think about. As Toastmasters leaders, in positions to create community, to help people acclimate, to do more lasking, which means learning about them. Remember, the acclimatization that we did on Everest was so critical to our success. We also, over time, had to build community. It doesn't happen like that. And lastly, I learned a great deal from that experience. And I believe that all of us, as leaders, not only in Toastmasters, but in our lives, we can take those 3 things and we can apply them, not only to our clubs to help our members, but we can help challenge them. And we can also help them grow. And at the end of the day, we will be much better off, but they are going to see the power and the amazing opportunity that Toastmasters has to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brooke Chestnut.
He's a man of passion, a man of courage, and a man who is driven not only internally, but also to help other people to succeed. He's very natural, engaged the audience very well, a great storyteller. He actually moved around the room quite a bit, and so I felt like he kept our attention throughout the entire presentation.
I'd like to say that there are 3 things that I believe any audience will get out of Brooke's presentation. Number 1 is critical thinking about what it means to be successful as a Toastmaster as well as a pursuer of goals in life. Number 2, critically, how do you deal with failure? How do you deal with the goal that you set for yourself that you did not achieve? And I believe Brooke's presentation illuminates that idea. And number 3 is how do you come back to a new way of thinking about your goals, your success, and your achievement that is realistic as well as attainable. And through those 3 pathways, I think you come out of his presentation with a whole new set of ideas about your future and about the people around you that you also love. My favorite parts of the presentation included a clarification of how long and persistent Brooke was in achieving the goals that he achieved, with the difficult challenge of aging happening at the same time. These were highly physical, highly challenging feats that he undertook. And in spite of his own aging, he kept focused on the goal from a multi-decade point of view. Secondly, I felt very emotionally connected with Brooke in his own humanness in how he delivered his message, as well as how he brought the audience in, not to separate himself, but the connection, the communication between Brooke and the audience. This presentation is full of lessons that any audience can learn, especially those audiences with people that are pursuing serious goals. This is a presentation that can revitalize each person's motivations, each person's sense of commitment to their own goals, and that is the ultimate benefit of any keynote presentation.